A resolution reaffirming the zero-tolerance approach against sexual harassment in the workplace in the City of Philadelphia, introduced by Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to speak on this, if I may.
Please do.
First, I want to say thank you to all of my colleagues who co-sponsored this resolution, and a very special thank you to my colleagues for being available this week and for also being responsive as we paid close attention to the events this week. There is an educational psychology principle that says when it comes to teaching children content or subject matter, they have to hear material 5 to 7 times before it is fully absorbed. I would argue that this also applies to some adults. And so in that spirit, I want to first ask my colleagues to reference the purple and white graphic, which visually speaks to the still insidious and prevalent issue of sexual harassment. And we need to be reminded that sexual harassment occurs in all industries, professions, and companies, and therefore no space is exempt. As we speak up and speak out on this issue this morning, this injustice, I also believe we have to be circumspect and we have to be cautious, as there are victims who want to remain nameless. I've spoken with the Mayor's Commission for Women, a number of my colleagues, and heads of women organizations this week. And while I have spoken with multiple sides and stakeholders about this issue, I have not spoken to all sides of this issue. Nonetheless, City Council has a responsibility to use our collective voice and have our say on issues that troubles us, issues that sicken us, and on issues that we find reprehensible. In spite of the work that my office and others have done on behalf of women, children, and families, in my office specifically the Women on Boards Bill, the Mayor's Commission for Women, the Yes Means Yes legislation, we're still reminded that we have a lot of work to do on behalf of women and girls. Laura Bates of the Sexism Project says it best. This issue is not just about women. It is not a women's issue. It is a matter of human rights. To describe sexism, sexual harassment, and sexual violence as a women's issue sidelines and reduces women. Further, it neglects male victims and let perpetrators get off the hook. The good news in doing our homework this week is that our city government has policies that have been in place and were more recently updated in 1998, allowing and providing city employees a clear path and course of action during times when they have been sexually harassed. The bad news is that some of our state agencies and quasi-public entities still have serious work to do. Leaders and heads of those boards of directors have to take serious attention and look to make sure that they encourage a culture that normalizes see something, say something. While we are encouraged by the action of the Philadelphia Parking Authority, we will formally request a copy of a report that shows evidence that they have taken a closer look to sharpen, refine, and redefine their policies on sexual harassment. We have a vital role to play in helping to combat normalized sexism, and we have a role to speak up for those who've been fall in this ugly space. But it's clear, given what we know this week, that the Parking Authority Board should feel compelled to do more when it comes to their sexual harassment policy. I want to thank my colleagues again for working collectively to register our voice in a way that's respectful and in a way that sensitizes us to the victims that have been caught up in this mess. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Fiona Sancher.
Thank you. I feel compelled to join and thank Councilwoman Reynolds Brown for taking the leadership on this issue, not only because of the PPA issue, but there have been several other publicly funded institutions that have recently come to light where there has been cases of sexual harassment, where board of directors and others have tried to put this under the rug. Having spoken to many women who've experienced this, some women who are currently in those situations who are in the process of EOC claims, it is very, very difficult for women to come forward in environments where men thing, that there will be no recourse and no justice, and that there is retaliation, open retaliation. We've seen dozens of women get laid off, their jobs eliminated for speaking up, and many of those women have not come forward, and that's why I think it's important that we send a message that, particularly if you are at a public-funded agency, and you're on a volunteer on a board of directors, you have a responsibility, some of us would say an obligation, to have a zero tolerance on this issue. And it really disheartens me about the unwillingness of public agency and public funded agencies to ensure that there is a work environment for men and women that is safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman, did you make another motion?
Move for the resolution, adopt the resolution.
All right, it was properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution declaring the week of October 2, 2016 as Manufacturing Week in Philadelphia in recognition of the importance of the sector to the city. Introduced by Councilman Heenan.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the City Council Committee on Law and Government to hold hearings on whether the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter should be amended to provide for the creation of a criminal justice reinvestment fund to reinvest savings from a reduced prison population into criminal justice reform programs, introduced by Councilman Jones.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution declaring October 6, 2016 to be Prince Hall Day in the City of Philadelphia, honoring the outstanding civic and philanthropic contributions of the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania throughout Philadelphia and across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and celebrating the 201st Grand Lodge session of Prince Hall Masons, introduced by Councilman Johnson.
Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Council Committee on Law and Government to hold hearings regarding campaign finance reform and public financing of municipal elections, introduced by Councilman Green.
Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it, that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and congratulating the Ducky Burtz Foundation on the occasion of its 10th annual Medallion Scholarship Gala, introduced by Councilwoman Parker.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and recognizing the Joe Schiavo and Janet Coulter for their tireless dedication to the City of Philadelphia, and especially their old city neighborhood, introduced by Councilman Squilla.
Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing Council's Committee on Finance to hold hearings on the impact of the Wells Fargo Bank scandal on Philadelphians and the feasibility of removing Wells Fargo Bank as a city depository, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing Council's Committee on Health and Human Services to hold hearings concerning the quality, stability, and sustainability of direct support professionals who provide critically needed care to individuals of all ages with behavioral health, developmental, and physical disabilities, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and honoring Reverend James Sterling Allen, Sr. of the historic Vine Memorial Baptist Church for serving and representing Philadelphia for 37 years on the occasion of his retirement celebration weekend, introduced by Councilman O.
Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you. I move for adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. Are there any speeches on the part of the minority? Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Council President. Does crime pay? Do bad actions pay? I would say they sure look like they do. After years of sexual harassment and other accusations that may come to light, the executive director, who received $230,000 a year, resigned, getting $154,000 a year for the rest of his life. If you ask anyone on the street, would you do what he did and pay the price? I think the answer will be yes. And I'm sorry for that.
Thank you, Councilman. Speeches on behalf of the majority. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of Ceasefire PA, I just wanted to remind all of our colleagues and those who are present that today at 1 p.m. there will be a press conference here in the chambers regarding Ceasefire's efforts to lead a charge across the Commonwealth to give renewed efforts to the fight against taking away a local municipality's ability to enact common sense gun reform. And we just passed a resolution today. I know, Council President, of you, Councilman Jones and Councilman Johnson in particular have worked extremely hard on this issue on a local level, and we would just encourage folks to join the WHO as Mayor Kinney, Council President Clark, members Jones, Johnson, Parker, Greenlee, Gim, Dom, Blackwell, Reynolds Brown, Green, Senators Leach, Hughes, Farnese, and Ceasefire Executive Director Shira Goodman, again today at 1 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess when President Obama catches a cold, the rest of the nation actually catches on. I want to talk about 3 S's very quickly: public safety, saving money, and even saving some souls. And as co-chair of the Special Committee on Criminal Justice Reform, I thank you for appointing this body to actually start to do a deeper dive into the issue of criminal justice. Today I introduced a resolution calling for hearings to talk about the directional shift from mass incarceration to reducing of the census up on State Road and possibly even saving the taxpayers some money. But in that, what we want to start to look at is how those savings are appropriated. Should we put it back in the general fund where we do worthwhile things like bike lanes and fixing potholes, because those are important, or do we reinvest in justice? Do we go and look at the programs that are working, find ways to bring them to scale so that we really have a tipping point in this city where young people aren't on the pipeline to prison? We are charged with 2 things in that committee. 1, to stop the bleeding, and then reduce the systemic reasons for criminal activity. This fund will be dedicated to the latter. It will be dedicated to finding programs that work to reduce people's propensity to want to do wrong. If you look at Washington, D.C., and many of my colleagues and staff have been looking at the whole bail situation and the lack of bail in Washington, they were able to cut out a cash bail system, reduce crime, increase public safety, all at the same time by investing in pre-incarceration efforts, diversionary programs, day reporting centers, and the like. The prison department was appropriated over $258 million fiscal year 2017 to keep prisons running at its current capacity. With the reduction in the prison population and size that we anticipate, we will be able to reduce costs and some savings to the city. To this date, we have the highest recidivism rate in the Commonwealth and rivals many in the nation. 60.5% recidivism. That means 65 people out of 100 will go back. 60.1% rearrest, meaning if you get arrested once, you're more likely to be a repeat offender. 41.1% re-incarceration, where an arrest doesn't require a release, it requires incarceration. So we want to stop, and this costs us $94 to $120 on average a day to incarcerate an individual. What we are simply saying is that we want to move from just being mad at cancer to investing in probable cures. And that's what we want to do. If we're going to really move in this direction, we should reinvest in these programs that the court and that the prisons are doing are beginning to work. We're seeing modest reductions in the census. But if we're ever going to bring them to scale, if we're ever going to stop some of the activities in our barbershops, these young people heading to these prisons, we have to reinvest those savings in a proper way. So I thank you, Mr. President. I thank all those members on the committee that have done such hard work, Mr. President. And once you start digging and uncovering layers of the onion, you start crying first, but then you start making progress. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you and Councilman Johnson for being such significant representation on the Criminal Justice Committee. You guys are doing great work. Thank you very much. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know what, earlier our colleague David O started out his comments with, does crime pay? And it certainly seems like it does for some people. And I'm referring to Wells Fargo and the resolution which we introduced earlier this afternoon. And, you know, I just wanted to make a couple of points about Wells Fargo and some of the concerns that I think that we all should have, and to state that I think it's really time for us to divest. Remember that word when we talked about South Africa and apartheid and that movement in the 80s, and it was a call to divest assets and for companies to divest and investments, and it made a difference and it worked. And at what point will we decide that we're going to make a difference in terms of these big companies who operate in ways which are completely unacceptable, and that we continue to forgive when they say that they're sorry, we continue to work with them, and we accept their apology. And by now we all know about Wells Fargo's business practices, and basically they've admitted to stealing and committed fraud by opening millions of bogus accounts. Now, if I open an account or you open an account in someone else's name and using their information, we'd be behind bars. Senator Elizabeth Warren suggested this, that there should be a criminal investigation into Wells Fargo, and she said, and I quote, "This just isn't right. A cashier who steals a handful of 20s is accountable. But a Wall Street executive almost never holds themselves accountable, not now, not in 2008, when they crushed the worldwide economy. The only way that Wall Street will change is if executives face jail time when they preside over massive frauds." And so I want to know, I'm just asking, and I think that this is something that we can discuss further in the hearing, why is the city of Philadelphia still doing business with a bank that has admitted to committing fraud? The state of California has decided to immediately suspend its relationship with Wells Fargo. And in case anybody hasn't noticed, California is a whole lot bigger than Philadelphia, and if they can do it, maybe we can do it too. And let's note that California is the nation's largest issuer of municipal bonds. California is now barring Wells Fargo from underwriting state debt and handling all banking transactions. So why aren't we? I'm looking forward to this hearing on this particular matter and what we can do to, what kind of conversation we can have about beginning the process of divestment from Wells Fargo. There's got to be a lot more conversation about Wells Fargo. I know that Congress is having a hearing today, chaired by a congressman from Texas who, according to the Today Show, recently received a $10,000 contribution from Wells Fargo. And he's chairing that committee today down in Washington, D.C., so that's very interesting. Just so everyone knows the facts, Wells Fargo opened about 2 million bank accounts for customers who were then charged fees, penalties, and damaged credit scores because they didn't know that these fees and penalties were then being sent to a collection agency. 5,300 employees, 90% of whom were hourly, were fired. No executives were fired or lost the bonus money that they received as a result of these 2 million bank accounts. It's the most valuable bank in the world, and right now, I just feel like Wells Fargo, you owe us, the city of Philadelphia, an explanation. We want to know how many Philadelphians were affected. We want to know how many Philadelphians lost their jobs. And this is a bank that holds $3 billion worth of deposits that run through from the city of Philadelphia. They owe us the answers. How many were fired? How many accounts were opened here in Philadelphia? What was the domino effect? Anyone who's ever bounced a check knows that there's a domino effect from that. There's bad credit, there's collections, there are other bills that are unpaid. What happens? And as we talked earlier about this week being, or in a few weeks being Med Week, as we talk about small businesses, how were people who operate small businesses affected? So it all comes full circle, and we look forward to the hearing and hearing answers from Wells Fargo directly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. Just want to acknowledge as Chairman of Transportation and Public Utilities, the incident of a train derailment that took place earlier today in Hoboken, New Jersey, on its way to New York, a major transportation hub reminiscent of the actual same derailment that we had here in the city of Philadelphia regarding Amtrak. At that particular time, our body stepped up to the plate, was very supportive of addressing the issue and supporting the victims and the first responders as related to Amtrak, and we extend the same support with this particular issue, dealing with the derailment in Hoboken, New Jersey. And just want to extend our support on behalf of the city of Philadelphia, members of City Council, to the particular families, as well as the first responders addressing the issue, and just say thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. To quote her on Monday during the debate, Hillary Clinton said to Donald Trump, her name is Alicia Machado. For some of you, that was the first time you heard that name. For a young girl, for me, when Alicia Machado became Miss Universe, I remember thinking, not only is she gorgeous, she has a real body. And I remember being proud as a Latina, who is not average shape, thinking, wow, what an incredible woman. She later went on to do Latina telenovelas and other things. But this week, as the highlight of the video came out about Alicia Machado and the treatment she received by Donald Trump, calling her Miss Piggy, the housekeeper, degrading women is just not acceptable. That's why I'm always proud to be in a body where we talk up about domestic violence, we talk about sexual harassment, and there is no place for the degrading of women. She had an eating disorder. She had to get counseling. And this is not even about the elections, but it is about how we treat women. And this is about income inequality. It's about all of those issues that we still have to work on in this country. You know, I was very happy to see Michelle Obama come and encourage people to participate, because she is right. It's not about the selfie. It is not about the rally. It is about what are we going to do over the next few weeks to demand respect. Respect in this country, respect for social justice, respect for women and young girls. And so I'm encouraged, I'm outraged, but more importantly, I'm motivated. So tomorrow, I will get in my car, and I'm going to go to Reading, I'm going to go to Allentown, and I'm going to encourage Latina women to demand justice for Alicia Machado on Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. That be the end. There being no additional speeches, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned until Thursday, October 6, 2016 at 10 a.m.
Thank you. There's no movement seconded. The council stand adjourned until Thursday, October 6, 2016, 10 a.m. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, thank you all very much.